खबरां दा लेखा जोखा विच आप सबका स्वागत है।
Khabran Da Lekha November 1st, 2024 has been sponsored by Hanif Litigation. Any criminal or regulatory law matters, contact lawyer Shahid Hanif at Hanif Litigation 604-626-3144. Despite local bylaws, Halloween fireworks in full display across Lower Mainland. Despite rules and regulations that widely ban the use of fireworks around the Lower Mainland, many people say they were kept up much of Halloween night because of them. People say they were heard of several hours in party of Langley, Ladna, Vancouver, Surrey, Burnaby and Coquitlam. Sergeant Paul Worker with the Abbotsford Police Department says that officers dealt with a large amount being set off throughout the community and had to wrangle some young people who seemed to have no regard for where they were setting them off and who from the public was around. Last evening, the AB Police Department responded to a large number of fireworks complaints within our city, particularly within the west side of Abbotsford. Violation tickets were issued along with fireworks seizures occurring. Walker continued. Parents of these youth play a significant role in assisting police in ensuring they know that what their kids are up to. We are asking parents as we move into the weekend to ensure that their children aren't participating in this type of illegal behavior. Steve lives in the Johnston Heights area in Surrey and called for newsroom on Friday. He says it was simply too much. It was crazy. People after 9 p.m. Massive explosions, he said. I find Surrey by law. They were driving around trying to catch people, but they were being very smart about it. He worries people will continue shooting them in the air tonight and through the weekend. This year, Halloween fell on Diwali, the Hindu festival of lights, which is often marked with fireworks. Fines vary from city to city, with Surrey recently increasing its minimum fine from $100 to $400. The maximum was also raised from $5,000 to $50,000.
बीती रात पटाखियां दे शोरो गुल है जिहड़ा उस दियां कंप्लेंट्स वडेरी मात्रा दे विच आईयां पर लंबे समय तक वड्डी मात्रा दे विच मैट्रो वैनकूवर दे विच बैन होने के बावजूद जिहड़े पटाखे ने चलाए गए और हैलोवीन नाइट ते दिवाली दी रात इकट्ठे होने के कारण पटाखियां की गिणती दे विच बहुत ज़्यादा वड्डी पद्धर दे उत्ते वाधा रहा और नाल दी नाल ये भी दस्सिया गया कि किस प्रकार जिहड़ी जनतक सुरक्षा उस नूं मद्देनज़र नहीं रखा गया। आबसफोर्ड पुलिस ने भी इस गल का खुलासा किया कि वैस्ट साइड के उत्ते जिहड़े पटाखे ने वड्डी मात्रा दे विच चलाए गए। बहुत सारे मापियां ने भी पुलिस की जिहड़ी मदद है वो की और याद रहे पटाखे बैन ने और पिछले दिनों के विच सिटी ऑफ सरी ने 100 तो घट $100 ते वध तो वध $400 वाला फाइन वधा के 500 तो लैके 5000 तो लैके 50,000 तक जिहड़ा फाइन है वो वधा दिता सी गैर कानूनी ढंग नाल पटाखियां दे मुतल्लक किसी भी कार्रवाई बारे।
Newly elected MLA will also remain city councillor in township of Langley. A Langley Township City Councillor will have her hands full now that she has also been elected to the provincial legislature in Victoria and has chosen to keep both jobs rather than step down and trigger a municipal by-election. While local politicians typically resign their municipal seats if elected provincially, there's nothing in the Elections Act that would require Misty Van Popter to resign as city councillor just because she's been elected as the MLA for Langley Walnut Grove. Hamish Telford, a political science professor at the University of the Fraser Valley, says Van Popter may have a tricky time juggling both jobs. Telford says Van Popter will need to prove to residents in both constituencies that she can dedicate herself fully to both jobs, which include things like office hours and attending council meetings. As well, he says there may be ethical considerations. The city and the province may have different interests, and as a representative of both, she may come into a conflict herself, and she would have to recuse herself from those and use it, he said. In addition to her roles as councillor and MLA, Van Popter is also a member of Metro Vancouver's Water and Climate Action Committees.
Langley ਦੀ ਨਵੀਂ ਚੁਣੀ ਗਈ MLA ਮਿਸਟੀ जो कि पहला शहर ਦੀ काउंसलर भी है उसका कहना कि वो दोवें जड़ियां जॉब्स ने उन्हां नाल न्याय कर सकेगी। याद रहे एक शहर की सरकार है तो दूजी सूबे की सरकार है और इस दे नाल यूनिवर्सिटी के माहरों का भी ये कहना कि कई दफ़ा जो कन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरस्ट आता तो उत्थों उसनों अपने आप नूं पिछा रखना पएगा। अगर वो अपनी जिम्मेवारियां जिस तरह कौंसल मीटिंग्स हैं तो उन्होंने पूरी तरह निभाती है तो वो दोवें जिहड़ियां जॉब्स ने दोवें जिहड़ियां जिम्मेवारियां ने उन्होंने निभा सकती है।
Possible strike looms over BC ports as 72-hour notice issued. BC ports could be in for another round of disruptions after 72-hour strike notice was issued by the union representing about 700 foremen, and it's spurring major concerns about the economy. The disagreement is between the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, Local 514 and the BC Maritime Employers Association. If an agreement can't be reached in the coming days, the job action could begin at 8 a.m. on November 4th. This comes after the two sides had been negotiating with the help of a federal mediator for the last 3 days in a desperate bid to avoid a work stoppage at every port. Negotiations began last year after the last contract expired in March of 2023. The union said in September that members voted 96% in favor of authorizing strike action if necessary. On Thursday, the BCMEA said it had presented a final offer on Wednesday to the union that included increased wages, benefits, and a signing bonus. This dispute is centered around one employer, DP World, and its manpower requirements as it relates to automation. The union has said it had no interest in an industry-wide dispute because it wants to negotiate with DP World directly. But the Canada Industrial Relations Board says the union can't bargain with only one employer. All of this has the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade very upset. It says if the labor dispute moves ahead, it puts $800 million a day in trade that flows through West Coast ports at risk. If another strike occurs, it will again mean higher prices for Canadians at a time when the economy is struggling, it said in a release. As Canada's largest gateway, West Coast ports are critical for Canada's economy. Supply chain instability in recent years has been a major hurdle for Canadian businesses, which was only just beginning to improve prior to the start of this labor disruption. The ongoing disruptions not only jeopardize Canada's international reputation as a reliable trade partner, but also threaten long-lasting damage for years to come. Vancouver's port is the largest in Canada and has been home to a number of recent disruptions, including one in September when workers set up pickets at 6 Metro Vancouver grain terminals. A month before that, port operations were disrupted by work stoppages at both major Canadian railways. In July 2023, a 13-day port strike froze billions of dollars in trade at the docks, something some economists warned was a loss that would be felt for a long time.
वैनकूवर दीयां बंदरगाहां दे उत्ते काम करन वाले वर्कर्स की एक यूनियन वालों जो स्ट्राइक का 72 घंटे का नोटिस दे दिता गया। वो कहते जे अगर साडियां मंगां ना मनिया गईयां तो आने वाले सोमवार 4 नवंबर तो जी स्ट्राइक है वो कर देंगे। याद रहे पिछले कुछ समय दे विच लंबियां जिहड़ियां स्ट्राइक्स होईयां ने उन्हां तो काफ़ी ज़्यादा प्रभाव पिया है। वैनकूवर दे कंढियां समुद्री कंढियां दे उत्ते पैण वालियां बंदरगाहां दे उत्ते तकरीबन इंटरनैशनल ट्रेड का वड्डा हिस्सा उतरदा है। और याद रहे कि अगर ये स्ट्राइक होंदी है उन्होंने कहना है कि पहला ही आर्थिकता जिहड़ी है बड़े गुंझलदार हालातों दे विचों लंघ रही है। इस समय दे उत्ते इस तरह की जिहड़ी स्ट्राइक है वो आम कैनेडियंस दे लई बड़ी भारी ते महंगी पै सकती है।
Canada's youngest dangerous offender who sexually assaulted baby seeks prison leave. A convict who became Canada's youngest designated dangerous offender after sexually assaulting a 3-month-old baby is seeking escorted leave from prison to attend Indigenous cultural ceremonies in Vancouver. Tara D'Souza, now 43, has applied to federal court to overturn a decision by BC's Fraser Valley Institution to deny her escorted temporary absences from the federal women's prison. D'Souza, then named Adam Lobokan, was 15 years old in 1997 when she sexually assaulted an infant she was babysitting in Cornell, BC. The baby required surgery to repair the injuries. D'Souza, who underwent gender-affirming operations while serving an indefinite sentence, also admitted to drowning a 3-year-old boy when she was 11 years old, which the judge in the sexual assault case said was below the age of criminal responsibility. BC Supreme Court Judge Victor Curtis imposed an indefinite sentence and a dangerous offender designation in 1999 because there was no foreseeable time span in which Adam Lobokan may be cured. In doing so, I do not intend that Mr. Lobokan be kept in prison for many years with no hope for release, the judge wrote of the then 17-year-old. What is intended and what must happen is that Mr. Lobokan be kept only so long as it necessitated by the risk he poses. The BC Court of Appeal upheld the dangerous offender designation in 2002. D'Souza's application filed in federal court in Vancouver in October says she first applied for escorted leave to attend ceremonies at the Anderson Lodge Healing Center for Women in August 2023. The lodge is run by Circle of Eagles Lodge Society, an Indigenous-led organization headed by CEO Merv Thomas. Thomas said in an interview that he couldn't comment on individual offenders, but a lot of people coming into our facilities are dealing with a lot of historical trauma. He said the society takes a holistic approach to helping people heal through ceremonies held at the lodge, and those that are involved in culture and ceremony have a greater chance of reintegrating positively into the community. We leave the final judgments to the Creator, he said. We don't judge anybody that comes to us. He said there are strict conditions and protocols for offenders that come to the society's facilities, and community safety is paramount. In his decades working with the organization, Thomas said even he was trouble reading the files of the brothers and sisters who seek help from the society, reading about some of the horrific things they've done. But I also started reading and started to understand where they come from and some of the atrocities and the damage that was done to them, he said. I don't understand. Now I understand and I see both sides, and it's very difficult a lot of times to put our judgments aside. But at the same time, we work with them and we believe that everybody has an opportunity for change. D'Souza's Vancouver-based lawyer Caroline North declined to comment on the federal court application. D'Souza has had several attempts for parole denied, most recently in June of 2024. The Parole Board of Canada decision said the assault victim and their family have suffered pain, anxiety, and anguish and long-term emotional impacts resulting your offending. Each time you come up for parole, they are haunted by your offending and the damage you inflicted on their defenseless son, grandson, the decision said. The board decision said D'Souza was the victim of extreme abuse as a child, bullied at school, diagnosed with several disorders, and exhibited violent and sexual behavior around other children. It said D'Souza's case management team believed that escorted temporary absence were the next logical step in reintegration and gradual release. However, the board ruled that D'Souza presented an undue risk to society if she was paroled. A profile in D'Souza's name is listed on Canadian Inmates Connect, which connects convicts with potential pen pals. I've been incarcerated since I was 15 years old. I was abused extensively as a child and did not know that this was not normal behavior, says the profile, which includes photos. I know now and I'm remorseful. I have never been given a chance to have proper interaction with that world growing up. Thomas said inmates approved for escorted absence to attend the lodge have to go through a rigorous process. But those who participate in ceremonies and access other supports from elders and counselors see the greatest chance of reform and rehabilitation. When people embrace their culture, that's where we have seen the most change in people, he said. They have to do the work themselves, because if they don't do the work, then we can't change them.
ਇਹ ਜੀ ਦਸੂਜ਼ਾ ਨਾਮੀ ਮੂਲ ਨਿਵਾਸੀ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਪੈਰੋਲ ਤੋਂ ਮਨਾਹੀ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਛੋਟੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਿੰਸਕ ਆਦਤ ਵਸ ਹਿੰਸਕ ਸੈਕਸ਼ੂਅਲ ਅਸੌਲਟ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੜਚੋਲ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਇਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸਦੇ ਮੂਲ ਨਿਵਾਸੀ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਦੀ ਅਧਿਕਾਰਤ ਖੇਤਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਐਕਸਟੈਂਸਿਵ ਅਬਿਊਜ਼ ਅਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਮਨੋਦਸ਼ਾ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਹੀਲਿੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪਾਵਰਸ ਵਾਲਾ ਕੈਂਪ ਆ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਉਸਨੂੰ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਜੀ ਠੁਕਰਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਬਹੁਤ ਦਫਾ ਉਸਨੇ ਟਰਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਨਿਗਾਹਖੋਰੀ ਦੇ ਉਸਨੂੰ ਛੱਡਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਨਾਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਉਹ ਨਾਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਡਸੂਜ਼ਾ ਵਰਗੇ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਬਚਪਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮਾੜੀ ਸੈਕਸ਼ੂਅਲ ਅਬਿਊਜ਼ ਔਰ ਹਰ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਅਬਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਗੁਜ਼ਰਦੇ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਰਤਾਵ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਬਣਦੇ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੀਲ ਹੋਣਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਮਾਰਨ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਉਸਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਇਸੇ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਵਰਤਾਵ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚਾਂਸਸ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਬਰਕਰਾਰ ਨੇ।
Winnipeg man arrested after Punjabi pop star AP Dhillon's Vancouver home attacked. Mounties on Vancouver Island say one man has been arrested after shots were fired at the home of Punjabi megastar AP Dhillon in early September. The singer's home in Colwood was targeted with dozens of bullets in the early hours of September 2nd. In an update Thursday, Mounties say a 25-year-old Winnipeg man is facing charges of arson and discharging a firearm with intent. He was arrested in Ontario yesterday. Police also have a warrant out for a 23-year-old who has been living in Winnipeg but is believed to be in India currently. The 23-year-old suspect, described as a 5 foot 9 inches tall, 200 pounds man with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with additional information on the whereabouts of the suspect is asked to call the West Shore RCMP at 250-474-2264. While the RCMP did not confirm it to be Dhillon's home, Mounties shared they were called to Ravenwood Road, and the musician posted a short message to Instagram shortly after. Dhillon said, "I'm safe, my people are safe, thank you to everyone who reached out." West Shore RCMP Corporal Nancy Sagar says arson is included in the list of charges given that 2 vehicles were lit on fire during the incident. An occupant of the residence was evacuated by police and Colwood Fire Department extinguished the vehicle fires, Mounties said. Mounties believe the shooting was targeted and said there is no further risk to the public.
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪੌਪ ਸਿੰਗਰ AP ਢਿੱਲੋਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਚਲਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ 2 ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਮ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਨੂੰ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਵਕਤ ਇੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਲਕਿ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੁਣੀਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਸੂਬੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਇਸ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਉਸ ਵਕਤ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸ਼ਨਾਖਤ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਘਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਪੌਪ ਸਟਾਰ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਉਸਦੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਚਲਾਉਣ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਗੱਡੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈ ਹੋਈ ਅੱਗ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚਾਰਜਸ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹਨ।
Federal RCMP bust nation's largest drug super lab in BC's interior. Federal RCMP investigators say they've taken down the largest, most sophisticated illicit drug super lab in Canada, seizing that police say amounts to 95 million doses of fentanyl. Last week, investigators conducted a series of coordinated raids across Metro Vancouver and on the lab in Falkland, BC, a community between Kamloops and Vernon. Mounties say they seized over half a ton of drugs and dozens of firearms, though only one person has been arrested and charged. The main suspect faces multiple charges in connection to the bust and remains in police custody. Standing behind a huge display of items, RCMP Assistant Commissioner David Tiball says the bust represents $485 million seizure from organized crime. The investigators seized approximately half a ton of hard drugs, including 54 kilograms of fentanyl, 3 90 kilograms of meth, 35 kilograms of cocaine, 15 kilograms of MDMA, and 6 kilograms of cannabis, Thibault exclaimed, after the seizures extended beyond illicit drugs. In addition to the massive quantities of drugs and precursor chemicals, investigators seized a total of 89 firearms, which included 45 handguns, 21 AR-15 style rifles, and submachine guns, many of which were loaded and ready for use. To date, 9 of these guns have been identified as stolen, said an RCMP release. The searches also yielded small explosive devices, large amounts of ammunition, firearm silencers, high-capacity magazines, body armor, and $500,000 in cash. Thibault says the lab was operating in Falkland but had associated properties in Surrey. Investigators believe the lab was run by a transnational crime group trafficking drugs within Canada and internationally. Thibault thinks it's time for the Canadian justice system to catch up to the reality of the danger of outside threats. They have proxies that operate in Canada and elsewhere. Those are the people that we are focused on and aim to bring to justice, he said. And I think it's time for our justice system to be increasingly stiff to the parasitic behavior. Thibault says there could be more people charged as the investigation continues.
BC ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਾਕਲੈਂਡ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ BC ਮੈਟਰੋ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਟਰੋ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਨਿਰੰਤਰ ਛਾਪੇ ਔਰ ਕੋਆਰਡੀਨੇਟਡ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਛਾਪੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਲੈਬ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਬਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 95 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਡੋਜ਼ਸ ਸਨ ਗੈਰ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਸਨ। ਔਰ ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਦੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਦਾ ਖੇਪਤਾ ਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਕੀਮਤ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ $485 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸ ਖੇਤਰ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਪਾਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਨਸ਼ੀਲੇ ਪਦਾਰਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੋਕ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਘਾਟਾ ਪਿਆ। ਔਰ ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਖੇਪ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਫਿਸਟੀਕੇਟਡ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ। ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਖਪਤ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨਜ਼ਰਸਾਨੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਔਰ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਿਧੀ ਵਿਧਾਨ ਆ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਚੇਤੰਨ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਡੀ ਮਾਤਰਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸਲਾ ਵੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। $5 ਲੱਖ ਕੈਸ਼ ਬਰਾਮਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਵੱਡੀ ਮਾਤਰਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਜਾਂ ਬਣ ਰਿਹਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਬਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ।
Canadian election watchers to gather in bars' homes to watch polarizing U.S. vote. Canadians engrossed in the drama of the U.S. presidential election expect to gather in bars and living rooms to watch the votes roll in Tuesday, but many say the usual fanfare of watch parties will be muted by anxiety over the especially combative race. Dustin Herberman of Vaughan, Ontario, says he'll follow the results with his parents, who learn more to the right of the political spectrum than he does. He's steeling himself for a night of delicate chit-chat meant to avoid squabbles over polarizing candidates, Kamala Harris for the Democrats and Republican candidate Donald Trump. Pretty much it's just kind of agreed upon by everyone who don't push too many buttons during the vote, he says of the House rules. The 35-year-old Herberman plans to monitor CNN with occasional flips to Canadian networks, but expects there will be a little bit of a fight for control of the TV with his dad. It's probably going to be flipped, at least part of the times, to Fox News. For poll watchers who prefer a bigger gathering, there are events planned across the country, many of them organized by provincial political association, non-partisan policy organizations, and expat groups. Meanwhile, pubs, bars, and eateries eyeing a chance to spur traffic on a typically slower Tuesday will run at least some of their screens from sports to the news channels, especially in the border city of Windsor, Ontario, where one city councillor hoped the talk of the town will drive business. This year is more captivating than any year that I could possibly remember since the 30 years I've lived in Windsor. No question about it, Ronaldo Agostino says of the U.S. race. Agostino says several bars, eateries, and comedy club were among the businesses planning events in downtown Windsor, where U.S. news is inescapable due to the saturation of Detroit radio, TV, and cross-border traffic. Over in Toronto, videos cabarets Vox Pop 24, the elephant rolls over. An American election watch party will double as a fundraiser for the 30th upcoming 50th anniversary. The evening of satire, music, and scintillating banter promises performances, panel discussions, special videos, and a theme buffet and bar, say organizers Janet Burke and Anand Rajaram. Most of all, it will offer safe space to process what will likely be an inflammatory outcome no matter the vote result, says Burke. You look around and folks, we are saying, I don't know if I'm going to watch, I'm going to hide under my bed, I'm going to just wake up the next day and see what happens, says Burke, founding member of the theatre. So we've invited people to come and wring their hands together. Let's all just join hands and see what happens. And when the results come in, we'll sink off, we'll jump up in great relief, she says. Like Agostino political marketing expert Dave Bizarre senses a heightened interest and broader curiosity among Canadians than what was seen in the previous two U.S. elections. Bizarre, an associate professor at the University of Windsor, runs a political marketing course focused on predicting the fates of Harris and Trump and says he'll be watching the results roll in with the neutrality of a scientist. But he can easily see how emotions can get the best of some observers. The support for each of the two parties has become more polar. So I could picture people, if they're doing a watch party, to want to be amongst people who agree. People seem to not have as much patience or don't have much patience with people who support the other party. Bizarre says he'll tune into TV news coverage with his wife and son, but also plans to connect virtually with his brother in Montreal, two daughters in Toronto, and his students. Canadian prime time coverage Tuesday is set to include live reports on CBC from Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault and Senior Washington Correspondent Paul Hunter, a panel of experts on CTV News Channel led throughout the evening by Chief Political Correspondent Vasi Kapelos, while CTV National News with Omar Sachedina will be on location in Washington, D.C. Global News Downa Ferson and correspondents are set to host a national live stream available on globalnews.ca, YouTube, the Global TV app, Pluto TV, and Prime. Rajaram says his event makes no pretense of leading towards Harris and away from Hush that has especially targeted marginalized groups. We are saying in the invites, cheekily, don't be alone on election night, but it goes far beyond that. It's you don't need to be alone, period, says Rajaram, Associate Artistic Director of Video Cabaret. There's a community of people here who are as invested in the world and that worldwide worldview as you are, and we want to be a hub for people to feel safe and feel supported.
ਗਵਾਂਢੀ ਮੁਲਕ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੀਆਂ ਰਾਸ਼ਟਰਪਤੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਮੰਗਲਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਣੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਿਰਕਤ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨਿਗਾਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਟਿਕੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਰਾਸ਼ਟਰਪਤੀ ਡੋਨਾਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਬਣਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਮਲਾ ਹੈਰਿਸ ਔਰ ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਬੜਾ ਰੌਚਕ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਫਸਵਾਂ ਮੁਕਾਬਲੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਧਾਰਨਾਵਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਰ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਟਿਊਜ਼ਡੇ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਪੂਰੀ जनतक होएगी इन्हां दे रिजल्ट वो की होणगे।
इसी के साथ हमें इजाजत दीजिए। खबरों दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम से until next time, goodbye and be safe.